Ladies and gentlemen, we have not a surprise guest, but a very, very welcome guest. My heart is filled with gratitude for President Carter for the job he did as President of the United States of America. He was a moral force. And Mr. President, thank you. Come on over. And by the way, everybody knows that after doing a fantastic job as the president of our country, he's been the world leader on health issues. And pardon me, Mr. President, I just want to say, no, don't sit down, because I'm just going to say this briefly. He has succeeded with his colleagues operating out of this center where we are right now in eliminating more than 99% of all cases of guinea worm disease globally. Wow. And there are many other examples I could cite, but in addition to being the world champion on health issues, he has also been the #1 promoter of democracy, observing 103 different elections in 39 countries, standing up for the integrity of democracy. Mr. President, for all of us, we're grateful to you for giving us the chance to be here, but we're grateful to you just for you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Now you can sit down. Al's finished speaking, so you can sit down. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming and extend a hearty welcome to all of you to the Carter Center. As Al said, we do a lot of things at the Carter Center. We've worked in about 80 countries since I left the White House, and including the 103 elections, troubled elections, all of them, and we also try to negotiate peace agreements when we are needed. But the overwhelming portion of our work, I would say 65% of our budget, and more than that of our personnel, is devoted to public health. And we concentrate primarily on neglected tropical diseases. And this has taken us into the poorest villages of the poorest nations on earth. Many of them in Latin America, but most of them, as you may know, in Africa. We have a very active group associated with the Centers for Disease Control, the original host of this meeting. When political exigencies press on from the pending or possible disapproval of Congress, the CDC has to be a little bit more cautious politically. The Carter Center doesn't. I have Secret Service. I have Secret Service protection the rest of my life, and I'm not running for the office, so I'm kind of immune to politics. But when Al called me and let me know that CDC had canceled their being the host of this conference, I was very eager for you to come here to this. Because, as I said earlier, most of our work is in the poorest villages among the poorest people on earth. And there's no doubt that when the ravages of global warming become more obvious to everyone, not just 99% of all the knowledgeable scientists, well, I'd say 99.8% of all the knowledgeable scientists. There's some other scientists I won't say are knowledgeable who don't believe in global warming yet, but they are getting much more rare. But when this does happen, of course, the first horrible impacts on people's lives will be in the poorest villages and the poorest nations on earth. And that's where the Carter Center is particularly involved. We get a lot of help from the pharmaceutical companies, Merck, Pfizer, and others. And in November, we administered our 500 millionth dose of medicine to keep people from going blind and to prevent worms from coming out of their bodies and remaining in their bodies. So this is the kind of work that the Carter Center does. We also train literally tens of thousands of very highly qualified volunteers. In Ethiopia alone, we trained about 37,000 workers who qualified to be either licensed practical nurse or registered nurse or physician's assistant. And when we go into Ethiopia to work on eliminating terrible diseases among the people, those trained helpers that we trained ourselves, took us 10 years to do it, are there to help us do that. So we can very easily treat 10 million people in 1 week to learn how to do away with eye diseases, river blindness, and trachoma and so forth. So this is one of the things that the Carter Center feels is a very important reason for you to come here, and we are a very integral part of this. The American Public Health Association, I know, is deeply involved. CDC has some representatives here too, and different public health organizations around the world, NGOs and others, and you all certainly are welcome. We look forward to receiving more information as a result of this conference and others. I know that Al will stay in touch with me personally, and your experts will stay in touch with our scientific experts at the Carter Center to let us be guided as early as possible during the process of global warming to be ready for the crises when they evolve. We already are very heavily pressed with diseases caused by unclean water, and we know that that would be one of the first indications of global warming is a shortage of water. In some countries in the world, like Bolivia, for instance, already is worried about that absence of water, and we've seen excessive amounts of water recently in California, but before that, and I think to be enduring, is a shortage of water in California as well. And when those things happen, the poorest people are the first ones who suffer from worms in their bodies and from going blind and from dying. And so we want to be part of this process as much as possible. We had a meeting this morning. I had a meeting this morning with the ambassador from Myanmar. I've been there 3 or 4 times to talk to them about their problem. And the ambassador informed me that one of his daughters has a PhD from American University, and she's back in Myanmar now working on climate change and on environmental issues. So it's a far-reaching thing with a lot more attention being given to it. I don't have any doubt that the results of this conference will be eagerly awaited by many of your compatriots and interested people around the world, and I'll be one of them. So welcome. Go back to work now that I've interrupted you, and feel free to stay in touch with the Carter Center in the future. Al is a very close personal friend of mine as well as a political associate, and we know that the political, discussion or debate or argument about global warming is not yet over. We thought it might be over as a result of this last election in the United States, which I won't mention any further, but it's still an extant and immediate problem of what to do about it in the future. No matter what happens, though, with global warming, I think that the results of this conference will be helpful, at least in one major aspect, and that is health care. It won't be just physical health care either. My wife reminded me today at lunch that she's fearful that one of the first aspects of people becoming more strained in their daily lives will be an increase in the threat to mental health, which has been her primary interest in life for the last 45 years, aside from me and the rest of the family, I might say very quickly. But sometimes it comes first. So with mental health, physical health, your attention to this subject and your discussion of the issues involved and your ability to predict some of the more onerous consequences of global warming will be very valuable to me personally, and to the Carter Center, and to everyone else in the world who's interested in public health. Thank you again. Go back to work, and welcome to the Carter Center.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Mr. President. What a treat to have him speak to us. Thank you very much. And again, we wouldn't be here without your willingness to let us meet here. Thank you so much.